Tenants trash or treasure. What are the laws when a tenant abandons stuff inside a property? Stay tuned.
I'm the ringleader, so listen up.
Guru Swami, Master of Property Management, Cleo Whithear, thank you for coming on the show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Why does my head look so big today?
Because it's all black behind you and it's all good.
Whoa.
I can go forward to make it look big.
Whoa.
I slept funny and I put a line
how,
on my face.
How are you on this rainy day?
Yeah, good. I was just saying I slept funny. You know when you mush your face and then you get those weird sleep lines? I look kind of funny.
Is there more mushing of the face as we get older?
I think so. There's more skin to like sort of mold around.
I call it Kentucky Fried Chicken skin.
It's true. And bunking with the 2-year-old on the edge of the bed doesn't help. I was like on the side, like it's fun. Abandoned goods.
So
yes.
Cleos, where you're a property manager, and you're dealing with abandoned goods, but people out there in New South Wales, Sydney, Australia, sort of don't quite know the laws. Sometimes people overarch and overreach and go beyond what they should be doing. So we wanted to use this opportunity today for, potential tenants or potential landlords to understand what happens when they leave goods in a property, what you're allowed and not allowed to do within the letter of the law. Obviously, it changes from country to country, but we're going to talk about what happens in Sydney, Australia today.
Well, typically, the early days of real estate, the ruling was based on if the cost to store the items outweighs the cost or value of those items, then you can pretty much dispose of them. So, for example, if it's kitchen foods and preserves and things like that have been left in a cupboard, or, maybe a broom or a dustpan, where it gets tricky is the term value of the items can be misconstrued as to what value the tenant feels that those items may or may not have been. And so we find that most states now require an abandoned goods order from NCAT, which you have to apply for. So in the event that the tenants left artwork behind, or, passports, personal belongings, things like that, it doesn't matter if they're small or large, you can take them away and keep them in the office, but there is a time frame in which NCAT gives before you're able to get rid of those items. You have to exhaust all avenues in trying to contact those tenants that have left them behind, where it be phone call, email, everything gets documented, and then you give them a time frame. Sometimes when a tenant's evicted as well, through the sheriff, those items or belongings, they do have a 2-week window to collect those as well, depending on, when they can be back to pick them up, and you have to escort them there as well. So it's a big process with stuff left behind. It's not just the junk they leave outside on the the nature strip where council complains and strata write to you.
So, as an example, memorable items of abandoned items that you've seen. So,
there's so many.
What would some of them be?
Look, one time I'd exhausted all the bond, so the property was left really unclean and there was fumigation needed. And then I go down to the garage, this is in DY, and open the garage door, and there's a Holden Astra in there without number plates. And I'm thinking, oh my God, no. Like, I had no idea, how do I get rid of an abandoned car? And the rule was that if it's not on the street, then council have nothing to do with it. So it's the owner's cost to get rid of this Holden Astra. And I'm like, where and how? Like, this is just insane. And of course, there's no keys in the car. There's nothing, like, it's just a black Holden Astra without number plates on it. How do I get rid of it? And then, we're all talking about, like, we could just roll it out and just leave it out on the street. How are you going to get in and roll it out? And it's really tough because the owner, that's a lot of money to get rid of a car and have a pickup truck come and get it. And, they'd already spent all this money and the property was already vacant and there was damages. It was just a real nightmare. But what I ended up doing was going through the tenant's application form and going through all the next of kin and employers, and I messaged everyone on that application and I just said, there is a car left in the garage, we'll leave the door open, we don't care how or when, but it needs to go. And miraculously the next morning I turned up and it was gone. So we were lucky. Yeah, it disappeared.
So it would be heavy-handed at the end of a tenancy once a tenant's moved out, what I'm hearing, to grab stuff and chuck it. All efforts have to be made to contact the tenant, let them know, remind them. But it's a bit weird, like, even after that, sometimes you get a bit ghosted and stuff is there. So the laws are quite strict, are they? So you reach out to, what does NCAT stand for the lay, that for people who don't understand that are watching?
New South Wales Consumer Tenancy Tribunal. So it's there for not just real estate, it's there for compensers as well. So retail, if you went to the shops and you have a dispute over clothing or the tradies, bills, construction, it's all there and it all comes under that division. And ours is for real estate. The process for abandoned goods, obviously you photograph all the items and you show a timeline of how you've contacted the tenant. So the software that real estate agents use aid in that recording process, phone call, tried this, tried that, tried this. But, some people don't realize as well how expensive the tip costs to get rid of stuff. So, if you can do a pre-vacate, any property managers out there with a tenant that you feel that's been problematic or has been terminated or for whatever reason you think they might leave stuff behind, it's always good to go there early and just say, look, this all has to be gone by this time. Do a pre-run through the property because, the handyman mattresses, all that sort of stuff, they cost a lot of money to dispose of at the tip. And you might not have that out of the bond if there's rent arrears as well, if it's been a difficult tenancy. Council cleanup, another thing. I don't know if anyone's tried to book a council cleanup these days. They're so booked in advance. So if you're a tenant moving, in 2 weeks' time, the likelihood is that you have to be a month ahead when you're planning your council cleanup. And no bond can be released until that stuff's gone as well. So if you're relying on council to come and clean up, furniture and things you don't want to take with you to your next property, you have to really think ahead.
Quick one before we go. That's abandoned goods inside the property. Often there will be abandoned goods once they move out that mysteriously turn up on the street gutter, and you ring the tenant, they go, "Nah, wasn't me." And the same day they moved out is the same day the fridge, the old couch, the mattress turns up on the gutter outside. Neighbours is like, we know who this was. How do you handle that?
Well, there is the routine inspection video. So detective property managers will go back and go, oh, that is the tenant's couch, or that is the...
I never thought of that.
Yeah, so you check that stuff. But like anywhere, if you have something out on the curb for 10 seconds, the likelihood is you'll blink and there's 50 other more items there. So people go, oh, well, there's a great opportunity. There's a council cleanup happening, and they just go and pile more stuff on. And so it is really hard with that. If you can do your outgoing really quickly when a tenant vacates, it's a good thing. The strata managers also need proof as well. So they do often just go, oh, well, it's your tenant. And we're just like, but our tenant didn't have that. We've got the videos. Like, you know, maybe it was someone else in the street moving out.
They were framed.
They were framed, yeah, totally. There's an emergency pickup clause sometimes that you can use with council that I've tried. I've just said, you know, something's been left out, and we feel like it's going to turn into a mountain, you know, and they will internally see what they can do to get that. That's just sort of like calling on a bit of a favor, but they do that around DY often because there are a lot of units and it's quite high density, so they do keep on it. My dad, I just got a funny story. We had this piano growing up and it was beautiful and huge and big, and nobody wants a piano. We couldn't take it to the new place, so we inquired and it was going to cost $350 for someone to take it away. And so my dad was like, no, I'm not paying that, especially since he paid to have it moved to 4 properties in our lifetime, and it was just nuts. So we booked a council cleanup and he hacked it up himself with an axe and a chainsaw and left it out on the curb, and council picked it up for
And
free.
off it went.
And off it went.
But I never thought about that abandoned goods on the outside of a property, twofold. One, you know, who did it and how do you prove they did it? I love what you said about the routine inspection. And the second thing, it creates an avalanche where every other neighbour thinks there's going to be a council cleanup there, so they start dumping their stuff. It's sort of like this avalanche of stuff that turns up. So interesting stuff that we don't hear or see spoken about in the marketplace. So thank you for covering it today.
No problem, anytime.
You're a legend. Thanks, Cleo. See you, everyone.
Yeah.
Have a great day. Enjoy the rain.